Boethiah, the Lord of Deceit, Conspiracy, Murder, Sedition, Torture, and Cruelty, a Daedric prince who thoroughly enjoys conflict and the suffering of mortals. Quality bloke. Hello everyone, I'm Pebble with Boss Fog, and in today's video, we're going to be delving into the lore of the Daedric Prince Boethiah. So sit back, relax, grab a drink, and let's get into it. Like their brethren, Boethiah was initially one of the Atata, a primordial being in the world of the Elder Scrolls. They chose to keep their power over giving it up to create Mundus, like the other princes, and created a world they could exert their will over indefinitely. The plane of oblivion associated with Boethiah is called Attribution's Share, initially called the Snake Mount, and has gone through numerous name changes throughout the ages, reflecting Boethiah's fear of the overthrow of authority. When it comes to the landscape of this realm, it can best be described as a labyrinth of mazes dotted with towers. Boethiah also hosts a tournament called the Tournament of the Ten Bloods here, in which an individual from each of Tamriel's races are summoned to fight to the death for Boethiah, with the winner being granted Goldbrand, a relic of Boethiah. As you guys may have guessed, Boethiah is one of the more violent Daedric princes, thoroughly relishing in bloodshed and the suffering of mortals for their own amusement. Boethiah's fear is the unlawful overthrow of authority, and as I said before, the attributes most associated with them are conspiracy, deceit, torture, cruelty, treachery, and sedition. Basically anything to do with assassinations and secretly slaying people. They are considered the arch-enemy of Molag Bal, the Lord of Domination, for obvious reasons, considering their spheres are in a constant clash with each other. Domination versus the secret overthrow of authority. I'd be fine if they just duked it out amongst themselves, but unfortunately, mortals are caught up in their squabbles. Sucks for us, eh? They are also venerated in Dunmer culture, but we'll get to that later in the video. For now, let's delve into what Boethiah has done throughout the ages in the Elder Scrolls games. During the Merethic Era, there is a very interesting story regarding Boethiah. A race of elves known as the Aldmer, of whom all the current races of elves in Tamriel descend from, were worshipping a deity called Trinimac. The Aldmer were sad about being mortal, with Boethiah seeing this sadness as an opportunity to exert their will over the Aldmer. Boethiah preached to them that they were unworthy of immortality, and that the mortal life was just a test that the elves had to go through. This understandably upset Trinimac, who confronted Boethiah. The Prince of Plots somehow convinced Trinimac to enter their mouth, which gave Boethiah the ability to take on Trinimac's form. They then told a group of elves who would later become known as the Chimer to leave their homeland and settle in Morrowind. Here's where the myth gets weird. According to legend, after eating Trinimac, Boethiah then shot him out and he became the Daedric Prince Malakath. Trinimac's remaining followers then became the first orcs. Malakath is generally disliked by most of his siblings, so I guess it's a good explanation? Being a literal piece of shit? Still weird though. Anyway, back to the Chimer. Boethiah then nurtured the Chimer, teaching them how to be different from the Aldmer, and influencing many advancements in magic, societal practices, philosophy, and their general way of life. They are considered to be the most influential of the three good Daedra in Dunmer lore, but we'll get to that in a bit. On to the First Era. There's not much lore regarding Boethiah in the First Era of the Elder Scrolls universe, as none of the games take place in this era, but there are a few little tidbits. Apparently, sometime during this period, one of their artifacts, Fearstruck, was destroyed by a dragon. We'll get into Boethiah's artifacts later on, but just know that it was a shield. Also during this era, Boethiah was among 8 of their brethren who were convinced to sign the Cold Harbor Compact by Sothisil, after Molag Bal destroyed the city of Gilvardel, with this agreement apparently restricting the princes involved from manifesting directly in Nirn. I went over who was involved in this agreement a bit more thoroughly in my Azura lore video, so if you're curious which princes were involved, head on over to that vid and give it a watch. Now, on to the Second Age. Before we get into the Second Age, I've noticed through some of my comments on my videos that there's a decent amount of people who don't think of the events of the Elder Scrolls Online as canon. I honestly didn't know this was a thing, as I'm not really involved in many lore communities online. I'd rather play the games and gather information for myself and treat every entry in the series as canon. But I understand why people feel strongly about this topic. If I'm being honest, The Elder Scrolls Online is probably my least favorite of the Elder Scrolls entries, but nonetheless, I'm going to cover what Boethiah and the other Daedric princes were up to during this game. Hope you can forgive me. Continuing on with Boethiah's bullying and disdain for Malakath, they were up to their old tricks again in Valenwood, specifically at the ruins of Abimath, trying to keep the exile of Moloch, another name for Malakath, sealed away. Boethiah also manipulated Urili Vox, whose son had just been killed by Almalexia, a tribunal god, into creating the Malborn, a Daedra-worshipping cult who spread a plague on the land of Deshaan to create an army of undead called Plague Husks. Urili Vox also got her hands on the Judgment of Saint Veloth, an immensely powerful warhammer/great mace that gave her godlike powers. It was at this time that a being known as Aspera appeared to the Vestige, the player character in ESO, whom I believe is just Boethiah in disguise. Let me explain. Aspera seems to know everything about Urili Vox, her life, her son, her motives, everything. Plus, there's this interesting line of dialogue spoken to the Vestige. I want to see a fair fight, but that can't happen here. Judgment keeps your silly gods at bay. There's only one sure course. You must die by the hammer that Vox wields. Once you enter her realm, you can collapse it from within. We know that Boethiah craves bloodshed above all else, and seems to find pleasure in causing utter chaos among her champions. So, having one champion defeat and kill another, only for the defeated champion to come back from the dead and defeat the original champion, is something that they would thoroughly enjoy. And guiding and manipulating two parties into fighting to the death isn't outside her realm of influence as a manipulator and plot weaver. A bit down the line in the events of ESO, Boethiah once again messed with Malakath by helping the Vestige, again in the form of Aspera, by gaining the support of giants, who then joined the Ebonheart Pact and defeated an army of orcs, also overtaking Cradle Crush, an arena associated with Malakath. Boethiah then had another of their trademark tournaments to the death at Dragonstar Arena, calling upon many warriors to try and defeat her champion at the time, Heath the Battlemaster. Aspera once again makes an appearance, heavily implying that she is in fact Boethiah in disguise. You'd think she was Mayfala given all these plots leading up to this point. Anyway, the Vestige eventually defeats their champion, probably pleasing Boethiah, but who knows? They are an odd prince. Third Era time! Finally we get some straightforward interactions from Boethiah. During the events of Daggerfall, Boethiah called upon the hero of Daggerfall to kill a spell sword who was pissing them off. There was really no motive to this killing, just that the spell sword was a charming and charitable ass, who was apparently irritating to the Daedric Prince. After the player character defeated the spell sword, Boethiah rewarded them with the Ebony Mail. A few years later, during the events of Morrowind, Boethiah took a break from plots and focused on fixing up one of their shrines, tasking the Nerevarine with this task. The Nerevarine found a sculptor to spruce up the shrine, and Boethiah gave them their sword, Goldbrand. This sword would again be awarded to the hero of Kvatch during Oblivion, who participated in another of Boethiah's tournaments to the death, known as the Tournament of 10 Bloods. The player character defeats the other 9 participants and gains the sword. Up next, the Fourth Era. Not much to talk about regarding Boethia and the Fourth Era. During the events of Skyrim, the Dragonborn gained Boethia's favor during one of their tournaments, with the Dragonborn being charged with defeating Boethia's previous champion because he went AWOL. The Dragonborn then slays this former champion, being gifted the Ebony Mail and becoming Boethia's new champion. Now, let's delve into Boethia's significance in Dunmer culture. Boethia's influence is intricately woven into the history of the Dunmer, or Dark Elves, of Tamriel. Unlike most cultures of Tamriel, Boethia is held in very high regard by the Dunmer, and is considered one of their good Daedra. As discussed before, it was Boethia who convinced Veloth, and by extension the Chimer, the precursors of the Dunmer race, to abandon their Aldmer roots and establish a society and land of their own in Morrowind. This society established by the Chimer was one that orbited around Daedra worship, Boethia and Mephala organizing the Chimer into a system of clans which eventually became the Great Houses of Morrowind. As said before, Boethia was instrumental in advancing the Chimer culture through magic, philosophy, architecture, and guidance. Boethia is known as the anticipation of Almalexia in tribunal worship, which essentially means that Almalexia was considered an aspect of Boethia due to her power. As I touched on in my Azura video, the Chimer eventually morphed into the Dunmer, and with that, Boethia took over Almalexia's spot in Dunmer worship when the new temple rose in power, which replaced the tribunal with their aspects, as those the Dunmer worshipped, namely Boethia, Mephala, and Azura. This new tribunal of the three Daedric princes is what is currently worshipped by the Dunmer as of the Fourth Era. In the Khajiit mythos, Boethia is known as Boethra, and is known as a deity that teaches the old ways of the Khajiit, as well as being a patron of warriors and rebellious exiles. The Khajiit don't necessarily pray to Boethia for favor, preferring to revere them through their actions, which mainly include stalking and secretly killing their foes, and walking the path. Boethia is a mainstay in the Khajiit myths, which I won't get too much into to stay on topic. But the Khajiit do have an interesting myth regarding Boethia and Malakath. No surprises there. In this Khajiit myth, Anu, arguably the creator of the Elder Scrolls universe, banished Boethia from the heavens due to them being rebellious. During their exile, Boethia walked the many paths, which, from what I understand, is a web consisting of all the outcomes and possibilities which are possible in the universe of the Elder Scrolls. Think of the multiverse in the MCU. They're essentially the same thing. Upon returning from the many paths, Malakath is said to have followed Boethia out of the many paths as well. It also should be said that the Khajiit view Malakath as a demon, known as Orca, and is shunned in their views. Boethia then banished Malakath, earning the name Orcabane among the Khajiit. Boethia is also known as a defender of the Lattice, which is arguably the most confusing and convoluted aspect of the Khajiit lore. From what I can gather, the Lattice is some kind of barrier that protects Nirn from Oblivion and Aetherius, with Boethia as well as some of the other deities venerated by the Khajiit defending it from other princes or beings, time and time again. Look it up, it's confusing as hell. Overall, Boethia is considered a good prince to the Khajiit, pretty interesting considering their violent nature. The orcs. They certainly have a fun relationship with Boethia. As was mentioned before, the orcs were created when Trinimac was devoured by Boethia, shut him out, and created Malakath, cursing Trinimac and his followers, who would later become the orcs. However, they have a slight variation of this myth. The build-up to the confrontation between Trinimac and Boethia is the same, but when they engaged each other, Mephala showed up and stabbed Trinimac in the back as he was about to deliver a killing blow to Boethia, allowing Boethia to curse Trinimac and his followers, casting them into the Ash Pit, which would eventually become Malakath's Plane of Oblivion. Malakath and his followers seem to hold this myth as truth, regarding the whole excrement myth as too literal. There is also a book called The Exile of Exodus, which appears in the Elder Scrolls Online, which expands on the Boethiah versus Malakath myth. In the book, the Velothi of Boethiah and the followers of Trinimac faced each other in battle, with the followers of Trinimac outnumbering the Velothi 3-1. Trinimac remained silent during the confrontation, but his followers spewed insults and jeers at the Velothi, calling them traitors and rebels. At that moment, Boethiah appeared and called upon the followers of Trinimac, claiming their lord was a hoax, and that they were the one who had guided them. Boethiah then formed a sign with their hands, and lifted a curse that had blinded the Orsimer to the truth. When they recovered, they did not see Trinimac, but Malakath, and Boethiah now took the form of Trinimac in their eyes. Malakath, enraged, then attacked and wounded Boethiah, and he would have won if not for the intervention of Mephala and Azura, who each took a third of the warriors present away, with Boethiah taking Malakath and his followers to the ash pit. Boethiah and Malakath then fought again, with Boethiah winning and reshaping Malakath into Moloch, using his bones to form the basis of the ash pit and his blood forming its foundation, making the realm his. Boethiah then preached to the surviving orcs about facing adversity until Malakath reappeared, wherein Boethiah urged him to seek glory through struggle. Boethiah then encapsulated Malakath and his followers in a single sphere of influence, with both of them testing their followers through combat for the ages to come. Boethiah and Molag Bal have gained a sort of rivalry over the ages, which isn't too much of a surprise. Boethiah represents the unlawful overthrow of authority, encouraging deceit and treason, whereas Molag Bal seeks to dominate and enslave every being in Nirn. They have clashed quite a few times during the history of the Elder Scrolls, with the most iconic clash in my view being when Molag Bal tasked the Dragonborn to beat and kill a priest of Boethiah, who had desecrated his shrine during Skyrim. The Khajiit also have a myth where Molag Bal, Mehrunes Dagon, and Meridia attacked the lattice, probably to disrupt the barrier between Oblivion and Nirn, and influence it to their own ends, only to be defeated by Boethiah and Azura. Their spheres of influence are in a constant struggle to one-up each other, so it's only natural that they would hate each other. I'm on Boethiah's side though. Fuck Molag Bal. He's a gross dude. Being such a violent and social Daedric prince, Boethiah has numerous artifacts up for grabs in the Elder Scrolls games, with a lot of them having very unique abilities. First up, we have an Elder Scrolls Online exclusive, Abolisher, a sword which could open, destroy, or reopen portals. It was a weapon used to imprison the Daedric Prince Athelia, possibly the most powerful prince if we're taking ESO into account, making it an immensely formidable artifact. Unfortunately, its powers were expended at the end of Athelia's arc. Another ESO weapon is next, that being the Duplici Gladio. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. A sword with the ability to create a duplicate of itself as well as its wielder. But it was a sort of a wild card, as it obeyed the will of Boethiah. Don't trust it. Goldbrand is next, arguably Boethiah's signature artifact. It is a golden katana, allegedly created by the dragons, which has the ability to burn its foes, making it a mighty weapon. It is also said to hold the power of Boethiah, whatever that means. Maybe it makes you more treacherous? Anyway, Fearstruck is the next artifact, and it actually isn't available in the games, so we don't know much about it. All we know is that it was destroyed by a dragon during the first age. Shame. Finally, we have the Ebony Mail, an artifact you all know well. Usually appearing as a medium or heavy piece of ebony armor, it has the ability to shroud its wearer in darkness, quieten their footsteps, poison enemies through close proximity, grant resistance to magic and fire, and increase protection. It's also my armor of choice during any playthrough of Skyrim. You can't get much better. Love it. And that's the end of the video. But wait, I have something to say. First off, thank you for watching and making it to the end of this video. I really appreciate it. You're fantastic. Secondly, I have a bit of a life update. In a few days following this upload, I will be uprooting my life and moving from Canada across the globe to the lovely land of Australia. I'm doing a working holiday for around a year, and I'm very excited about it. It should be a blast. But what does that mean for this channel? Honestly, not much. I'll still be uploading videos, but they might be a bit more spaced out as I'll be traveling around and seeing the country. I won't be taking my gaming PC as it's absolutely massive and not worth lugging around Oceania, but I'll be bringing my laptop with me so I can edit. I won't be doing as many, or any, gameplay videos as my laptop can't handle any games. Thanks, MacBook. So I'll be leaning into doing more lore videos and video essays for the next few months. I have some ideas about what to do in this coming year, namely this Daedric Prince series and a few other video essays that I won't reveal yet. So there will be no shortage of content to work on while I'm out there. But anyway, thank you again for watching. I appreciate every one of you, and I'm excited to start this new chapter of my life with you guys with me. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care of yourselves.